What's up, everybody? And welcome to another edition of High Mythology, the show where I puff more smoke than a fire-breathing dragon, and we tell you guys silly stories from mythology and folklore. Tonight, we will be bringing you a little Norwegian folktale that goes by the name of the golden castle that hung in the sky, that was hung in the air. The dangling castle in the air. The golden castle that hung in the air. Yeah.
It's a little similar to our last one, too.
Little similar to the three princesses in the mountain in the blue.
But oddly enough, these two stories are on opposite sides of the country.
Oh.
Hey.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay. I know that there was some talk of like muskets and stuff in this one, wasn't there? Yeah. So we're looking at another one of those like fantasy in the age of gunpowder. So I hope you're ready. Yeah. Without further ado, Kimbo, go ahead and take her away.
Thank you. There was once a man who had 3 sons. When he died, the 2 eldest decided to go out into the world and try their luck. But they wouldn't take the youngest with them at any price. They told him,
"You're no good for anything but sitting and holding pine torches. You just poke the ashes and blow on the coals."
And to this the ash lad replies,
"Then I will go out by myself. At least I won't be at odds with my company."
Okay.
Okay.
The 2 set out, and after traveling for some days, they came to a great forest. There, they sat down to rest and eat some food that they had brought with them, for they were both tired and hungry.
Hungry.
I feel like that could have done without that.
Yeah.
As they sat there, an old hag came up through the tuft of the grass and begged for a little food. She was so old and feeble that her mouth twitched and her head quivered, and she had to support herself on a staff. She told them,
"I haven't had a crumb of bread in my mouth in over 100 years.
But the boys only laughed and went on eating, and said that as long as she had kept body and soul together for as long as she has, she wouldn't mind holding out for a little bit longer.
Cocksuckers.
Besides, they had little to share and nothing to spare.
Little to share and nothing to spare."
When they had eaten their fill and rested, they set out again, and at last they came to the king's manor. There they were given jobs as serving men, both of them. A short while after they had left home, the ash lad gathered together the crumbs his brothers had cast aside and put them into his little knapsack, and he took the old musket, which had no bolt, for he thought that it would come in handy on the way. Then he set out. When he had walked for some days, he came to a thick forest through which his brothers had traveled. And when he was tired and hungry, he sat down under a tree to have a rest and a little to eat. But he had his eyes open, and as he took up his knapsack, he caught sight of a picture hanging on a tree. And on it was painted a young maiden, or a princess,
Ho, ho, ho.
who was so lovely that he could not take his eyes off her.
He's just fucking gawking at the tree. Yeah, that's a sexy tree right there.
He forgot both food and knapsack and took down the picture and sat staring intently at it.
"I'm gonna need a minute with this."
The first porno magazine.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, the old hag came up through the tuft of the grass, her mouth twitching and her head quivering and supporting herself on the staff. And she begged him for a little food, saying,
"I haven't had a crumb of bread in my mouth for 100 years. Come on now."
To this the boy replies,
"Then it is time you had some, old mother."
And so he gave her some breadcrumbs. The old hag said that no one had called her mother in 100 years, and she was certainly going to do him a favor in return. She gave him a ball of gray wool, which he only had to roll along in front of him, and he would come to any place he wanted to. But he mustn't bother with the picture, she said. It would only get him into trouble. The ash lad thought that this was all very well, but he couldn't leave the painting behind. So he took it under his arm, rolled up the ball of yarn, and threw it ahead of him. And it wasn't long before he came to the king's manor, where his brothers were serving. There, he too begged for a serving job. They replied that they had no work for him, as they had recently taken on 2 serving boys. But he begged so hard that at last he was allowed to help the stable master and be trained to groom the horses. That's some shit too, by the way. Fuck that.
Yeah.
No, thank you. And as he was both quick and clever, he soon learned to tend and take care of them by himself. And it wasn't long before everyone in the king's manor grew fond of him. But every spare moment he would look up at the picture, for he had hung it in the corner of his hayloft. Where he slept. His brothers were idle and lazy, so they were often soundly beaten. And when they saw that the ash lad was getting along better than they were, they grew jealous of him and told the stable master that he was an idol worshiper. He prayed to a picture and not to our Lord. Even though the stable master thought well of the boy, it wasn't long before he told the king. But the king only snapped at him. These days he was always downcast and sorrowful because his daughters had been carried off by a troll. But when they dinned it into the king's ears for so long that at last he wanted to find out what the boy was up to. When he came to the hayloft, he set eyes on the pictures and saw that the painting was of his youngest daughter. The fuck you doing with my daughter?
Who painted this?
When the Ashlad's brothers heard that, they were ready with a story at once and said to the stable master,
"If only our brother was willing. He said he could get the king back his daughter."
You may be sure that it wasn't long before the stable master went to the king and told him that. And when the king heard it, he shouted for the ash lad and said,
"Your brother say you can get my daughter back. Now I command your ass to do so."
The ash lad replied that he never knew it was the king's daughter before the king had said so himself. And if he could free her and bring her back, he would certainly do his best. But he must have 2 days to consider it and fit himself out. This he was given.
That you will be given.
The boy took out the ball of gray wool and threw it down on the road. And it rolled ahead, and he went after it until he came back to the old hag who had given it to him.
Just roll.
He asked her what he should do, and she said,
"Fuck yeah, you can do it. Here's what you need. Take your old musket, 300 crates full of spikes and horseshoe nails, 300 barrels of barley, 300 barrels of grass roots." Are you listening still? This is a lot of things. You should be writing these down. 300 butchered pigs, 300 ox carcasses, then roll the ball along the road until you meet a raven and a troll child. Then you will find your way. Just look for the raven and the troll child. That's the most important part.
The boy did as she said. He looked in at the king's manor and took his old musket and asked the king for spikes, the beef, the pork, the horses, the men, and the carts to transport them.
Much shit.
I know. A fuck ton of shit. I was like, holy crap, when I was reading this.
So much shit.
The king thought it was asking a lot. And he's right.
He's right.
But as long as he can get his daughters back, he would give him whatever he needed, even if it were half the kingdom.
It's an oddly specific number of large amount of things, too.
300 of everything.
300 of everything?
You know, the barley never comes back into play.
Yeah.
Just
That's
so you know.
fun. That's just for fun.
I dropped the barley off here.
Yeah.
When the boy had fitted himself out, he rolled the ball along the road again. And he hadn't gone many days before he came to a high mountain. There, in a fir tree, sat a raven. The ash lad walked until he stood directly beneath it and pretended to take aim with his musket. The raven shrieked,
"Nay, don't shoot. Don't shoot me and I'll help you."
To this the boy says,
"I've never heard anyone brag about roast raven, and since you're so anxious about your life, I may as well spare you."
So he threw the musket aside, and the raven came flying down and said,
Oh, this is a long one. He's a long-winded raven. Up on this mountain is a troll child who has gotten lost and can't find his way down again. I'll help you up so you can take the youngster home. You should get yourself a reward, which will come in handy. His father will offer you all sorts of riches. Don't pay attention to any of it. Only take the little gray donkey, which will be standing behind the stable door. Squawk.
Squawk. Then the raven took the boy on his back and flew him into the mountain with him and put him down up there. After a while, he heard the troll child whimpering and carrying on because he couldn't find his way down again. The boy talked kindly to him, and they had become friends and were soon on the best of terms. And then he promised to help the troll child down. He was going to take him home to the troll manor.
Troll manor.
So that he wouldn't get lost along the way again. Then they went to the raven, and he took them both on his back and carried them straight to the mountain troll. When the troll laid eyes on his child again, he was so glad that he quite forgot himself, and told the boy to come in with him and take whatever he wanted because he had saved his son. He offered him both gold and silver and all sorts of rare and costly things, but the boy said that he would rather have a horse. And to this the troll says,
Yes, but of course. Please come to the stable and take your pick of any of the horses I own.
And so out to the stable they went. It was full of the finest horses. They shone like the sun and the moon, but the boy felt that they were too big for him. So he peeped behind the stable door and caught sight of the little gray donkey standing there. Ashlad says,
No, I see nothing but a hive. No. Oh, nope. Got ahead of myself. That's the one I want. That's more my size. My voice makes me sound bigger than I am. If I fall off, I'm not far from the ground.
And so the troll was loath to lose the donkey, but as long as he'd given his promise, he had to stand by it. So the boy got the donkey, with saddle and bridle and all, and then he hurried on his way. They journeyed through the forest and fields, over mountains and broad moors. When they had traveled farther than far, the donkey asked if the boy could see anything. The boy replies,
No, I see nothing but a high mountain, which looks purple in the distance.
And to this the donkey replies,
Well, we're going through that mountain. Oh, am I really to believe that?
When they came to the mountain, a unicorn came charging towards them, and as though it wanted to eat them alive. The boy says,
I think I'm going to piss myself. Please don't unload. Please don't. I don't like to be pissed on. Just unload a couple of ox carcasses and ask it to break the mountain in half so we can pass it.
The boy did so, and when the unicorn had eaten its fill, a fucking carnivore, they promised it a couple scores of butchered pigs if it would go ahead and bore a hole through the mountain so that they can get through. When the unicorn...
Flesh, yo.
Charlie. When the unicorn heard that, it bore a hole and broke through the mountain so fast that it was all they could do to keep up with it. And when it had finished, they threw it a couple scores of pig carcasses. When they had come safely through this, they journeyed a long way through many a land. And then they journeyed through forest and fields and over mountains and more wild moors again.
They're journeying.
Just traveling, man.
Just traveling.
It's like 20 miles a day.
Yeah.
Then the donkey asked,
Do you see anything now? I see nothing but sky and wild mountains.
So they journeyed far and farther than far. And when they came higher up the mountains...
I think they're bragging about their distance here.
It's like 300 miles.
Oh.
When they came higher up the mountains, where the mountains became more level and flatter, they could see farther around them on every side. Then the donkey asks,
"Do you see anything now?" "Yes, but it's a long way off. It's sparkling and twinkling like a star." "It's certainly not so little, though."
When they had journeyed far and farther than far again, the donkey asked once more,
"Do you fucking see anything, my man? Come on. Please tell me you do." "Yes, now I see something a ways off. It shines like the moon." "That's no moon. That's the silver castle we're going to. When we get there, we'll find 3 dragons lying on the guard by the gate. They haven't been awake in over 100 years, so the moss has grown over their eyes." "I think I'm going to piss myself." "Maybe a little bit of poop." "Please don't. Like I said before, I don't like to be pissed on. All you have to do is wake up the youngest dragon and toss down its gullet a couple of those carcasses and pigs. Then it'll talk to the other 2, and you'll be able to enter the castle."
Wow, donkey, thank you. They journeyed far and then farther than far before they had arrived at the castle. But when they got there, it was both large and splendid, and everything they saw was made of silver. And on the outside the gate lay the dragons blocking the way so that no one could get in. But it had been quite quiet and peaceful, and they hadn't been disturbed much during their watch, for they were so overgrown with moss that no one could see what they were made of. And alongside of them was a small forest that started growing between the mounds of moss. The boy woke up the smallest of them, and it started rubbing its eyes and picking off the moss. When at last the dragon saw that there were folk there, it came toward him with jaws wide open. But the boy was ready, and tossed some ox carcasses and threw some pigs down its gullet until it had eaten its fill and it had become a little bit more reasonable to talk to.
It became a little more reasonable. Dragons are bad dudes. They're not bad dudes. He just woke up hungry.
Exactly.
I would be grumpy too.
I'm always grumpy when I'm hungry. That's true. The boy asked it to wake up the others and to tell them to move aside.
Move aside.
So that he could enter the castle. But the dragon said that it dared not and would not do so. To begin with, they hadn't been awake or tasted food in over 100 years. It was afraid that they would thrash about in a daze and devour both living and dead in their confusion. So the boy said it needn't worry, for they could leave behind 100 ox carcasses and 100 pigs and go away for a bit. And then they could eat their fill, collect their wits, and by the time they came back again, you can come back.
Mm-hmm. They'd be more chill.
The dragon agreed to this, and so they did just that. But before the dragons were properly awake, he had gotten the moss off their eyes. They flew around and thrashed about and snapped at all the sundries, and it was all the youngest dragon do to keep them out of harm's way until they had gotten wind of the meat. Then they gobbled down the oxen and the pig carcasses whole and ate their fill. And after that they were pretty tamed and good-natured. And so they let the boy walk past them into the castle. So easy to tame a dragon.
Yeah, they're just hungry. They're pretty nice dudes.
Yeah, I guess so. Inside the castle, everything was so splendid that he could hardly believe anything could be so fine anywhere. But it was empty of people, for he went from room to room and opened all the doors, but he saw no one. At last he peeped in through the last door of the chamber he had not seen before, and inside sat a princess spinning. And she was so pleased and happy when she caught sight of him, she said,
"How the fuck did you get in here? You better leave before the troll finds you and kills you. The troll has 3 heads.
The boy said he wasn't going to move even if the troll had 7 heads, by the way. Well, when the princess heard that, she wanted him to try to swing the big rusty sword, which hung beside the door. But he couldn't swing it. He couldn't even lift it. I think it's she. Yeah, princess says.
Princess says.
Eldest princess says.
Well, if you can't manage it, you'll have to drink from that flask hanging beside it. That's what the troll does when he's going out to use it.
So the boy takes a couple swigs, and now he could swing the sword as though he were a pancake turner.
Flipping these flapjacks, y'all.
Fuck yeah. All at once, the troll came rushing up.
Hey, y'all, I smell the flesh of Christian blood.
That's what the troll says. And the boy says,
So you do, but you needn't snort so loud. You won't be bothered by the smell much longer.
And then he chopped off all the heads.
Chop, chop, chop.
All three. The princess was happy, as though she had been given something fine. But after a while she began to pine, and she longed for her sister, who had been carried off by the troll with 6 heads, that now lives in the castle of gold, which was 300 miles beyond the world's end. The boy wasn't put out by one bit. He could fetch both princesses and the castle, and so he took the sword and the flask, mounted the donkey, and bade the dragons to follow him and carry the meat and the pork and the spikes.
He's still got so much shit with him.
Just leave these other fuckers behind. I don't want the dragons.
I would have. The dragons would have been the first thing. Yeah.
When they had journeyed a while and traveled a long, long way over land and sea, the donkey said one day,
Do you see anything? I see nothing but land, water, and sky.
And so they traveled far and farther than far. Then the donkey asked him again,
Do you see anything now?
Yes, when he looked carefully ahead, he saw something far, far away. It shined like a tiny star, the boy told him.
Twinkle, twinkle.
When they had journeyed a long way again, it asked,
Do you see anything now? Now I see it. It shines like the moon.
When they had gone far and farther than far, over land and sea, and over hill and moor again, the donkey asked,
Do you see anything now? It shines almost as if it was the sun. It shines almost as if it was the sun. Oh, yeah, there we go.
Yep.
There we go. That's the golden castle we're going to. But outside lies a serpent, which bars the keep watch way. I think I might shit myself. Please don't.
Bars the keep watch, which bars the way and keeps watch.
Bars to keep watch. What do you expect? You're asking advice from a donkey.
Are you tired, honey?
Well, oh, please don't. We'll have to pile layers of twigs and wood over it, and in between, use the horseshoe nails in rows, and then set it all on fire. That's how we'll kill it.
Nice. Alas, they came to where the castle hung.
Just dangled. Hey, he's hanging tower over there.
And the serpent laid stretched out in front of it and barred the way. Then the boy gave the dragons a good meal of ox and pig carcasses so that they could help him. And when they had spread it over the serpent, layers of twigs, wood, and layers of spikes and horseshoe nails, until they had used up all 300 fucking crates, which they had. And when that was done, they set fire to it all and burned the serpent alive. Don't even wake it up. Don't even ask if it's okay. You know, it's not as cool as the fucking dragons.
Yeah.
I guess. When that was done, one of the dragons flew underneath and lifted up the castle, while the other 2 flew up high into the sky and loosened the chains from the hooks that they were hanging on. Apparently it was a hanging castle. Literally hung.
Just hanging. Just dangling.
It was really weird. I lost my place. Anyway, they lifted it up, took it off the hook, set it down on the ground. Okay. So the boy went inside and found everything was even more splendid than the silver castle. But he saw no one until he came into the innermost room. There, on a golden bed, lay the princess. She was sleeping soundly as if she were dead. But she wasn't dead.
But she wasn't. Let's just clear that up. She was not dead.
Even though he wasn't man enough to wake her, for she was as red and white as milk and blood.
Oh, okay.
Just as the boy stood there looking at her, the troll came rushing in. Hardly had he put his first head through the door before he started shrieking.
No. I smell the flesh of a Christian. Perhaps, but you don't need to snort so loud over it. Besides, you won't be bothered by the smell for much longer.
And then he chopped off all of his heads, as though they were all cabbage stalks.
Cabbage! Ah!
Then the dragons put the golden castle on their backs and flew home with it.
Yeah.
They weren't long on the way. What? Whatever. They set it down beside the silver castle so that it shined both far and wide.
Shiny. The double shiny castles.
When the princess from the silver castle came to the window in the morning and caught sight of it, she was super duper happy. And she ran over to the golden castle that very minute. And when she saw her sister lying asleep as though she were dead, she told the boy that they couldn't bring her back to life before they had fetched the waters of life and death, which were kept in 2 wells on either side of the other golden castle that hung in the air 900 miles beyond the world's end.
Oh, damn. 900 miles.
Could just said something, bitch.
I could have just kept going and got the other castle, too.
And there lived the 3rd sister. Well, there's no other way around it, thought the boy. So he had to go fetch that, too. And it wasn't long before he was on the road.
On the road again.
I guess they can't wait to get back.
The poor donkey has put in some serious miles.
Why is he talking?
Yeah, he's a talking
Am I the one
donkey.
that questions the donkey talking? And why the fuck is he like the goddamn Verizon guy? Do you hear me now? Do you see anything now? Do you see anything now?
Do you see anything now?
Slap that donkey. Shut up. You got eyes too.
But we've gone far and farther than far. It's been 3 miles since you asked me that, donkey.
And as he traveled far and farther than far through
far and farther than far
through many kingdoms, through field and forest, over mountains and moor, and over land and sea, at last he came to the world's end, and still he traveled far and long over heath and hill and high crags.
Heath and hill and high crags. He knocked out all of his H's just in a row.
Oh, yeah. And so the donkey one day says,
"Do you see anything now?" I see nothing but heaven and earth.
And after a couple more days, the donkey asks,
"Do you see anything now?" "Yes, now I think I can make out something high up and far away, just like a tiny star."
And when they had gone a while again, it asked,
"Do you see anything now?" "Yes, now it shines like the moon, and I swear to God, donkey, don't you fucking say that again."
We got much more. So they traveled a few more days, and the donkey again asked,
"Do you see anything now?"
Oh, God. That's fucking funny.
"Yes, now it shines like the sun. Fuck you, donkey."
To this, the donkey replies,
"That's where we're going. To the golden castle which dangles in the air. A princess lives there who was carried off by a troll with 9 heads. All the wild animals in the world live on guard and bar the way to it.
Lie. They live and lie on guard.
They live and lie on guard.
To this the boy replies,
I think I'm going to piss myself. Please don't. There's no danger. As long as you don't stay there. Leave as soon as you fill the pitchers with the water. The castle can only be entered for 1 hour during the day, and that's at high noon. If you cannot finish in that time, then the animals will wake and tear you into 1,000 pieces.
Right at 12 o'clock they had arrived. All the wild and wicked beasts were lying like a fence outside the gate on both sides of the road. But they slept like logs, and there wasn't one which be so much as lift their paw. The boy went in between them and took good care not to tread on toe or tip of tail, and filled his pitchers with the waters of life and death. And while he did so, he looked at the castle, which was made of the purest gold. I'm assuming like white gold or some shit.
The purest gold.
And it was so fine. It was the finest he had ever seen. And he had thought it must be even finer inside. So he thinks to himself,
Pooh, I have plenty. Pooh, I have plenty of time. I can look around for a half hour. Maybe 45 minutes tops.
And so he opened the door and went inside. Inside, it was finer than fine. He went from one magnificent room to another, and it was closely hung with gold and pearls, and of all the costliest things that were there. But no people were to be found. At last he came to a chamber where a princess lay to sleep on a golden bed and thought she was fucking dead. But she was fine. Sorry.
She was fine.
I already read the same line. I'm sorry.
She was fine.
But she was so beautiful that he had never seen anything as beautiful, save her picture. For it was she who was painted in there.
Oh, shit. Bum, bum, bum. Oh, my God. I've beat off to your picture like 30 times.
The boy forgotten both the water he was to fetch, and the animals, and the whole castle, and only looked at the princess. And he thought he could never gaze his fill at her. But she kept sleeping like one dead. She slept like one dead. That's what they said. And he couldn't wake her.
Uh-huh.
Even when he stuck his peen in her.
Oh, I hope he didn't do that. That's not a thing he should do.
Towards the evening, the troll came rushing in and crashed and banged on all the gates and doors, so the whole castle rang out. He yelled,
Huff, I smell the blood of a Christian fleshies.
And stuck his first head through the door. The boy says,
I dare say you do, but you don't need to snort so loud over it. Besides, you won't be bothered by the smell much longer.
And with that, he chopped off all the heads.
Oh.
But when he was finished, he was so tired that he couldn't keep his eyes open. So he lay down in the bed beside the princess, and she slept like both night and day, as though she would never wake. But around midnight, she woke up for just a moment, and then she told him that he had freed her, but she must remain there for 3 more years. If she didn't return to him, then he would have to come and fetch her.
That's a complicated relationship right off the bat.
He didn't wake up until the clock had started on the another day. And then he heard the donkey braying and carrying on, so that he thought it was best to get out of there and head home. Before leaving, he clipped a piece of the princess's gown to take with him, But with one thing or another, he had hung about there for so long that the animals were stirring and beginning to wake up again.
Uh-oh.
By the time that he had mounted the donkey, they were closing in around him, and he thought that things looked really dangerous. But the donkey told him to sprinkle some of the drops of the waters of death and... he told him to sprinkle some of the waters of death on them. So one pitcher's water of life, the other one, pitcher of death.
Uh-huh. The waters of life and death. That's mean to the animals.
Well, it's not like they're not dead. They just put in eternal sleep.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You know what I mean? But not dead.
That's nice. That's nice of him, I guess.
And this he did. And then they all fell down around them on the spot, not moving a limb.
Mm-hmm.
As if they were dead. On the way home, the donkey said to the boy,
"Mark my words. When you come into honor and glory, you'll forget me and what I've done for you.
Dick.
I will be down on my knees for hunger."
That's so mean.
Oh, poor donkey.
No, that would never happen, thought the boy. When he came back to the princess with the water of life, she sprinkled a few drops on her sister so that she woke up. And then there was joy and rapture, as you might know.
Joy and rapture.
Then they went home to the king, and he too was happy and glad to have them with him again. But he pined and pined for pined and pined.
Pined and pined. He pinned and pined and peened and poned.
He pined and pined for the next 3 years to be up. When his youngest daughter was to come home, he made the boy who had fetched the two princesses a mighty man, so that he was the first in the land next to the king. But there were many who were jealous because he had become such an important fellow, especially this one fellow, and he was called the Red Knight. Sorry. Who they said wanted to have the eldest princess to himself. He got her to sprinkle a little bit of the waters of death on the boy.
Oh my
so that
God.
He fell asleep.
That's not cool.
Mm-hmm. Poor Ashlad. When the 3 years were up and the 4th year had well begun, a foreign warship came sailing in, and on it was the third sister. And she had with her a 3-year-old child.
Oh.
Looks like they did bang it out.
They did bang it out.
She sent word to the king's manor that she wouldn't set foot on shore before they had sent down the man who had come to the golden castle and freed her. So they sent down one of the highest persons at the king's court. And when he stepped on board the ship, he swept off his hat to the princess and bowed and scraped. The princess says to her child, "Can I be your father, my son?" The child was playing with a golden apple. The boy just meagerly says,
"No, my father doesn't roll like a cheese maggot."
He's like 3 years old.
Like, you can tell who his dad is.
Oh my God. Okay. So then they sent down another of the same sort, and that was the Red Knight. He had fared no better than the first, and the princess sent word by him that if they didn't send the right one, it would go badly for them all.
I'm kind of crazy.
And when they heard that, they had to wake up the boy with the water of life. And then he went down to the ship and to see the princess. But he didn't bow too much, because he doesn't know how. He only nodded
cool.
and pulled out a piece.
Sup, girl?
He only nodded and pulled out a piece that he had clipped from her gown in the golden castle. The child shouted,
"That's my father."
And he gave him the golden apples that he was playing with. Then there was great rejoicing over the whole kingdom, and the old king was the happiest of them all, for his favorite child had returned. But when it came to light that the Red Knight and the eldest princess had done to the boy, the king wanted to put them each rolled into a spiked barrel.
Yeah. Ouch.
But the ash
I
lad...
decree that we put you inside of a barrel and roll you down a hill. Well, that's not that bad. Fill the barrel with spikes and scorpions. Oh.
But the ash lad and the youngest princess pleaded for them, and so they were spared.
Instead, I will dip your feet in honey.
One day, as they were getting ready to celebrate the wedding, the ash lad stood out looking over the window, and getting on towards spring, they were letting all the horses and cattle out. And the last animal to leave the stable was the donkey.
Oh.
But it was so starved that it had to crawl through the stable door on its knees. And then he felt so ashamed having forgotten it until he had went down there and didn't know what to do in order to help. It's not really his fault if he was put under.
He was put under, yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of the Red Knight's fault.
That's totally
And
the
the
Red
princess.
Knight's fault.
Yeah.
And the princess. I hope that honey sticks to their toes.
But the donkey said the best thing he could do was to chop its head off.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
The
This
best thing you
he
can
was
do
most
is kill
unwilling to
me.
do. But the donkey begged so hard that at last he had to. And at the same moment the head fell off, a troll spell which had been cast over it was broken, and there stood the most handsomest prince that anyone could wish to see.
Ha! I was under a troll spell.
I chopped my head off. I came back on and I'm praying.
This whole time, I just wanted to die, to come back to life.
He got the second princess, and they celebrated a wedding that was the talk of 7 kingdoms. That's pretty much the end, but it also ends with a tiny poem.
Oh.
Okay, so it says, "Then a house they did build, and shoes they did patch, and wee princes they had from cellar to thatch."
Oh.
And that's the end.
That's the end.
Enjoy.
Yeah, that was a pretty awesome
Chop off my
little
head.
story. You
I'm
know what
dying.
also never came back into play? The musket.
Yeah, it was only in the beginning with the raven.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But the 300 barley never came into play.
Yeah.
That was just for fun.
That was just for fun. Yeah, that was for the old hag lady to make booze.
Yeah.
Bring me back 300 barley. I need it for my brewery.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, I'll make some menthols with it.
If you can pick up 400 packs of Virginia Slims, that would be awesome. Oh. So yeah, our source for this episode was Norwegian Folktales, selected from the collection of Peter Christensen Abjornson and Jorgen Moe.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty awesome book from the Pantheon Fairy Tale and Folklore Library.
Mm-hmm. They got a lot of good shit.
They do. They have a ton of shit. We're just saying that too. We're not, we're not sponsored or anything. So.
Yeah. But we're telling it like it is.
But we're telling it like it is.
Because we don't need to be sponsored.
Yeah. But
we would
if
like
you're
to.
listening, sponsor me.
Please.
Yeah. Well, I hope you folks have enjoyed this one. Yeah. Tune in this Saturday for our Saturday short. We're going to be mixing it up. We had a really cool interview with an author.
Yeah.
It got off the mythology track, but it's it's cool
That's
to talk
good.
with someone
Yeah.
making their own mythology.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's how mythology starts out.
Yeah. And I hope you folks enjoy it.
Yeah. Have
Yeah.
a good night, everyone. Oh,
Good.
yeah. Like, share, subscribe,
Yeah.
comment
I
if
think
you need
that's
to.
right there if you're on YouTube. Well, I don't know.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.